Good afternoon, my fellow Americans. My name is Ralston, and I'm the president of the South Carolina chapter of the UNIFIC Brotherhood. Thank you for tuning into my page. I hope it educates you and inspires you. Moving right along, I'm going to read you six names. The six names are Philip Parnell, Gregory Floyd, Kendrick McDade, Amadou Diallo, Sean Bell, and Ramarley Graham. Some of you have heard of these names. Some of you, these names sound familiar, but you don't know how you heard them or where you heard them from. So I'm going to read one more name. That name is Cecil the Lion. I'm sure a lot of you remember Cecil the Lion, the 13-year-old male lion who was tagged and tracked in the Hwange National Park. Well, Cecil the Lion was killed by a trophy bow hunter named Walter Palmer. And Cecil the Lion was wounded one night, and it took him 10 to 12 hours to die, which he finally did of his wounds the next morning. Well, this Dr. Walter Palmer, excuse me, was a dentist. He got on his plane and flew back home and drove to his house and found his house surrounded by protesters with signs, bullhorns. The crowd around his house was so large that there had to be a police presence to get him into his house so that he could safely greet his family and hopefully pack up his belongings and move somewhere else, which he ultimately had to do because not only was he ostracized in his community, but he lost his practice. He lost his practice and he affected everyone in his building because he wasn't the only one practicing medicine in the building in which he worked. You get my point? I'm trying to say that look at the outrage. Now, I'm not saying that uh, the killing of a lion is below mention. What I am saying is those six names that I read before I read Cecil the Lion, well, those six names were African American men, human beings who were brutally murdered by the police in their respective communities. Yes. And the only people that mourned them were their families and their friends because no one else knew about it. There was no outrage. There was no picketing of the police department. There was no protesting of City Hall who could change legislation and regulate police brutality and the system of arrest. So Walter Palmer, his actions created such outrage that they ultimately affected his pocket, his bank account. He was no longer allowed to practice in the town in which he lived. So, what myself and the Unific Brotherhood propose is that if we don't get the word across of our plight, of the devastation and terror and violence uh, inflicted on African American men in our communities across America, then we are going to affect change. And the way we have decided to affect change is monetarily. You see, $3.9 trillion is flowing into this economy yearly by men and women of color. $3.9 trillion. That comes out to roughly $10,684,506 a day. So July 7th, brothers and sisters, July 7th. Please mark this date on your calendar because on July 7th, join us in solidarity by not spending a dollar at any establishment unless it is an establishment of color, a Cuban deli, an Asian nail salon, a Jamaican restaurant, an Indian restaurant, a Mediterranean restaurant, an African American barbershop. we are going to be noticed. And the one way to get the notice of your oppressors is to affect their bottom line, their wallets, their bank accounts. Because we aren't going to stop with just one day. I guarantee you that. We are not going to stop with one day. Because if things don't change, that one day is going to grow into 2 days, 3 days, a week, or a month. And I guarantee you that if we remain solid in our convictions by affecting the bottom line of our oppressors, and yes, we are being oppressed. We will discuss the methods of oppression in later posts and later videos. So my proposal will only work if we all stick together. So share this page, like this page, subscribe to this page, because this page isn't going to go anywhere. I am going to post weekly. So if you have any bigotry, racial racial occurrences in your communities, get in contact with me. We will post them, and we will boycott that establishment that treated you this way, whether it be your landlord, Starbucks, even Walmart. If we stick together, we can affect change. My name is Ralston. Thank you for listening.